I'm here with Dale Sellers. I'll let him introduce himself in detail here in a second, but I've been privileged to know him for probably a couple years now. And Dale is proud parent of a brand new book. It's called Stalled, and I love the title. It's Hope and Help for Pastors Who Thought They'd Be There by Now. But I want to give you a chance just to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your ministry.
Well, Kevin, thanks first of all for having me. You're the first person who's referred to Stall as being a new parent of
Isn't it like it?
yeah. So I mean, this is my baby.
Yep.
I have this has been an incredible experience to go through, but I went through 40 years worth of experience to get to this point. I wrote an article recently, and I told people in the article, I said, the Bible, there are two phrases in the Bible that are totally misunderstood. The first one is, and it came to pass. And the second one is, and suddenly.
Yes.
Because both of those, and it came to pass, and suddenly, that the Bible is pointing out the moment that things happened, but there are a lot of years that got to that point.
Mm-hmm.
I think that describes my life. I've been in ministry for 40 years, basically, just right at 40. Gina and I, my wife, we were married when I was 20. She was 19. We were in college. We traveled for a few years with the college music group. So we would, do school during the week, travel on the weekends. And then after that, we launched our own music group and traveled. And so in the first 10 years we were married, we did 1,100 concerts in churches all over America.
Nice.
And had the opportunity to, as we interacted with all these pastors and these staffers, to notice that so many of them were discouraged. And me being a high energy, go passionate kind of guy, I used to say all the time, where did their passion go? What's wrong with these guys? Come on, guys, let's go. But when we came off the road and I started working in a local church, it took me 2 weeks to figure out what had happened to everybody.
It came to pass, didn't it?
It came to pass quickly.
Yeah.
And so I began to understand the dynamic, because when you're on the road, you blow in, you blow up, you blow out. You're not there to deal with whatever. But when you're there week after week after week after week, working with people, it can wear you down.
Yeah. Tell us about 95 Network. Explain your name.
The name 95 Network comes from the fact that of the 300,000 plus churches in America, 95% of them have less than 500 people attending. 87% of them have less than 200 people attending. And somewhere in the 70 to 75 percentile range of all the churches in America have less than 100 people attending. And so one of the things that's a kind of passion for us is we say that our mission is to provide big resources for small and mid-sized churches, because as a general rule, most of what I call the good stuff, the good resources, the good teaching, the good firms, all that stuff is usually out of reach for a small church. I pastored a small church for 12 years. And we used to go and see how much the offering was to find out if I was going to get paid that way. So the thought
Right.
of bringing in a consulting firm or getting, going to the right conference or whatever, that was just completely out of reach for me. And so we have such a passion for the small church and the small church pastors. I believe personally the small church is the backbone of the Church of America. I really do. And I think it's under-resourced. And honestly, if we're going to be really transparent today, a lot of the small churches are hard to deal with, because some of the dynamics are going on there with the pastor. A lot of times the pastor defines who he is by what he does. Mm-hmm. So, and that's not healthy. So instead of handing off ministry and raising up people, they do it themselves, or in a lot of cases in small churches, the people, so we hired you to do the ministry. And either way, the church can't really grow in that setting. So the 95 Network is here. We provide coaching and consulting. We do conferences, and we have a 95 membership that's very affordable, and we provide resources, just thousands of dollars worth of resources to help pastors with what we call content.
Thanks for sharing all that. But You guys describe the experience of writing your first book. So what have been some of the highs and lows, and when's the next one coming out?
But what happened was 5 years ago, or getting longer than that, but in February of 2014, I launched a leadership ministry. So what I did was I reached out to my friend Tony Morgan, who's at the Unstuck group, and I just set up a call with him. Kevin, I had to make a phone appointment. I didn't know what that was. What's a phone appointment? So it was like a month later. So we ended up talking, I think it was April of 2014. And now I don't know who you look up to, someone that you just consider to be a guru, but for me, Tony's one of those people. Mm-hmm. And so we're in the conversation, and about 15 minutes of the conversation, Tony stops me and says, Dale, I can't relate to you at all. Well, that's
Nice.
not what you want to hear from a guru.
Yeah.
And so he said, all I have ever done is work in larger church settings. So I don't understand what you're talking about. And Kevin, this is when my life changed, because I responded to Tony. I said, Tony, um, all I've ever done is work with small churches. But you need to understand, every small church pastor in America thinks they're going to have a larger church one day. Now, I don't mean everybody thinks they're going to have a mega church or even multiple thousands, but no one thinks they're going to pastor 40 people their whole life. You don't start off thinking that way. And I said, I'm going to tell you something today I've never told anyone. I said, I feel like a failure because I thought I'd be there by now.
Yeah.
And so we talked that through a little bit. And Tony said, Dale, that's fascinating. If you will write that as an article, I'll publish it on Tony Morgan Live. And let's just see if you get any response. So I wrote an article in May of 2014 called I Thought I'd Be There by Now, Confessions of a Small Church Pastor. And Kevin, I heard from pastors all over America. And they go,
Awesome.
that's exactly how I feel. So
Yeah.
that's where the seed for this book came from.
Yeah.
And then out of that, it was still 5 years later before I finally wrote the book. But that's kind of how it all came into being. And it's just basically saying, I didn't accomplish what I thought I would accomplish. And the bottom line was I felt like Jesus was mad at me.
Oh, yeah. That's something really to deal with and to wrestle with, isn't it? We want to please him. That's why we started to serve, right?
Yeah.
For the most part. And so it's hard when you think you maybe didn't. So,
Well, the drive for most pastors is that we want to hear him say, well done, good and faithful servant.
absolutely.
And I felt like he was going to look at me and go, listen, okay, you made it in. I want you to go way over in the corner of heaven, and maybe I'll let you sweep streets because you wasted your gift. And it all comes from a lot of dysfunctional things, Kevin, that people put in my life when I was a teenager.
Sure.
Like one of them would be, when you get to heaven, there's going to be a big video playing of your life and all the people in hell that you didn't reach, because there are people, if you don't reach them, that they're going to go to hell. Well, that's a pretty heavy weight to carry.
It sure is.
So I would walk through the mall or high school or go to a Clemson football game, and I would feel like it's my responsibility to reach all these people.
Yeah.
And I'm not doing very good at it.
I'm going to let the Clemson thing slide, but
I thought I'd throw that in there for you because I know where you are.
I'm a Buckeye. So yeah, that's a lot of burden for a teenager to carry in, and that's a lot to mix in with your calling as a pastor. But I'd say if we got really honest with each other around a circle and we felt safe, that a lot of that sort of thinking would bubble forth.
Being safe in the circle is kind of what I hope this book does, is because I'm very transparent about my story, of what I experienced and what I felt, and I hope that transparency will allow our readers to become transparent.
You write a lot about the problem of comparison in ministry, so tell us a little bit about that. What does comparison prevent, both like within and maybe even around a minister?
So here I am. I'm looking around. I'm pastoring this church. And when I went to pastor this church, we had 30 people. It had just split. So the church grew from 30 to 300 and then back to 150, because in our 8th year, we split. And we split because I was not a good leader. And what I mean by that is, see, here's the thing. People think, well, if you don't have a moral failure, you're a great leader. And that's not necessarily true. I didn't lead well. I didn't deal with the issues. I had issues that I needed to deal with that I would say, hopefully they would take care of themselves. And they never do. And so what happened would be, I would be pastoring along the same lines with some friends of mine, and I knew them. And Kevin, they're not sharp. They don't know what they're doing, but their churches are growing like crazy.
Yeah.
And I'm looking around going, what's going on here? And I would pray. And I even prayed these stupid prayers. God, I know what I'm doing more than that guy. But really, here's the problem. I had a lot of friends, several friends whose churches blew up into the thousands.
Yeah.
One particular church, if I mentioned, you would know it. I was the mentor of the pastor when he was a youth pastor. And I'm the guy that inspired him to start this church. And it grew up into over 20,000.
Wow.
And so I'm seeing this happen, and it's in the same town I'm in. And I'm like, what is wrong with me? See what I'm saying there? What's wrong with me? Because I haven't been able to do that. And part of the biggest problem was I had a very wrong understanding of what it meant to get there.
Yeah.
There was always unattainable. There was out there somewhere. And when you compare yourself to everybody else, it just makes you feel worse about yourself.
Where is there? You talked about it earlier. And second, and in the form of encouragement, what hope and help do you have for church leaders right now who are watching this?
There is wherever Jesus is, and so that literally means he's with you every day. And see, my problem was I had some unrealistic goal out there that would become success to me. I used to have a pastor asked me once, he said, Dale, what's it going to take for you to feel like you're successful? Because like, Kevin, if I did something and 100 people attended, I would feel bad because it should have been 110.
Yeah.
So I never let myself rest in the moment. So my whole view of ministry was out there somewhere. And basically I like to describe it like this. I would be like, Jesus would give me direction of something he wanted me to do. And I'd take off running, say, I'll catch you later. And he was like, no, we're going to walk in step. So it's very important that you understand that, and where I've got to is understanding that there is where he is. Kevin, I used to pray every morning of my life, Jesus, please don't come back today, or please don't let me die today till I fulfill my purpose. Well, then I begin to understand that the real objective of ministry is not to do things for God. See, there's this concept. We have to do things for God. We have to serve God and do things for God. There's nothing a human can give God. God has it all. What we want to do is do ministry from him.
Wow.
And that shift is what's helped me really have peace with myself. So my prayer today is, Jesus, just work through me. Today I'm talking to Kevin. Use this video to help somebody. Just later today, I'll do something else. Just today, work through me today to accomplish what you want to do in the earth, and I'm going to enjoy the journey. And so there, I've finally discovered that there's wherever he is, and he's with me every day.
Well, that's a huge encouragement. And that's a huge shift from thinking that we can add something to who God is and what God possesses to just trying to abide and to be obedient day by day.
If people will just lock this down, he wants you to do ministry from him, not for him.
Love it. And Dale, it's been encouraging to talk to you. And I know that it'll be encouraging to the other men and women church leaders, paid and volunteer, big churches, small churches who listen to this, because frankly, what you've had to say doesn't just apply to smaller churches. It applies to all of us.